Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to Autodesk Virtual Academy, brought to you all by KETIV Technologies this morning. My name is Nigel Mbayak. I'm one of the customer success managers and application engineers here at KETIV. Additionally, I also host all of these sessions. Today, I'm joined with my colleague here, Brian. I won't even attempt to butcher his last name. It is the longest one in the company by far. And Brian, how's it going?
Good. I can say your last name, Nigel.
It's probably it's also, I guess we have the two most complicated names in the company as per last names. But definitely glad to see you here this morning, Brian. We sit next to each other in the office, both of us being customer success managers. We work really closely with a lot of our streamlined accounts here at the company. So I've seen Brian work on this over the last couple of weeks. I'm really excited to see what he's got to share for you all today. Inventor is kind of the backbone of, a lot of our customers' design process, right? We want to make sure that everyone's leveraging it to their utmost ability. And, even people like us who sometimes instruct on the tool, how, show people how to use it initially, we'll see certain small things from our colleagues that save us a click here, a couple clicks here. Sometimes, you avoid this dialog box completely, maybe use some shortcuts. And, these are things that we find super valuable. We want to make sure we share to the rest of the community. And I think that's why Brian put all of this together for us today.
Exactly.
So if anyone has any questions, definitely go ahead and type those out into your respective chat panels, wherever you are, whether you're here in Zoom, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're watching this later. And, we'll go ahead and get those questions answered for you. Feel free to reach out to us too for any other questions that might not even be related to this, right? If they're related to just Autodesk products in general, or maybe some of the Ansys offerings we do give, definitely shoot those questions over so you don't forget to ask them later. And we'll make sure that they get to the right people. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Brian. You've done these numerous times in the past. So, you know the deal. Let's get going.
Sounds good. So for those of you who watch my webinars in particular, I like to start with the purpose, the reason to why we do these in the first place. And the one for this 15 Inventor Essentials Tips and Tricks is for workflow improvement. I want to be able to save you guys that button click, to be able to save you guys that ability to access your tools, or the ability to create your sketch in a particular way that maybe it'll open up a different perspective. Maybe you've been looking at it in a particular way. Maybe hopefully this can help influence you to have like more of an open mind of how you can go about creating your sketch. And if not, that's fine. You can hold on to the workflow. Maybe it'll help establish or help to reiterate what you already know and help to make that foundation even stronger for you there. And with that comes time efficiency. Of course, you're able to save time when you use the tool to its utmost capacity. You're able to truly understand and create the sketches with as much ease and efficiency as much as possible. And of course, for CAD data or computer-aided design, you want to be able to communicate your drawings or your models to the viewer, whether it's a customer, whether it's someone internal as well. That's the whole point of this, is to get your ideas onto digital paper in this case, and be able to communicate that to someone else. So you want to make your sketches, your models as predictable as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and lay it out all for you guys here. Here are the 15 essential sketching tips and tricks that we'll be going over. Have this out here, so then when this is uploaded to YouTube in a few weeks, you guys will be able to just scan to the one that you found or the one you remembered from this webinar, and you can go ahead and just skip over to that particular one. But for today, we'll be going over these. Hopefully we find something that will help change your workflow altogether within the next 20 to 30 minutes or so. The first one being keyboard shortcuts. And I have this one as number one because I want to show you guys, or I want to make sure that you guys get that this is, for my opinion, one of the most efficient ways to go about modeling or designing and sketching, as well as 3D modeling. But you have all these shortcuts here. And maybe Nigel, you can attest to this, that escape is one of the most commonly used shortcuts that we don't even think about anymore. Because when you're using a tool, sketching tool like a fillet, chamfer, and you want to get out of it, you just hit escape. It's a no-brainer for a lot of the more veteran users, perhaps. But if you don't use that, or if you're newer to this, then definitely take into consideration adding escape to your workflow as a habit there.
Yeah, when I'm, it's just a habit too. I know a lot of people use AutoCAD before, and to exit commands. I know a ton of people at this company who started using AutoCAD whenever. They always have their finger on the escape key and their right hand on the mouse. And when they hit escape, they hit it like 3 or 4 times. It's just something we see from everyone, and it's super hilarious when I first started seeing it, and now I do it. So definitely escape is one of those keys that you don't realize is a shortcut, but it really is.
It is one of these shortcuts.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a ton more than just this. These are just some general ones that you can use when you have your model open in Inventor. A lot of these are the same as AutoCAD too. When it applies to that application as well. Right. And then sketching shortcuts I use all the time. Most of the time I don't click commands, I click shortcuts. Or I type shortcuts in.
And things like Nigel was saying, the like L, for example, is the line tool. That's not showing on this page, but you can we can dig into that in just a second here. Spacebar is one that I've been picking up recently to repeat the last command. And a useful one, and I'm going to go ahead and hop between Inventor here, is the home zooms extents. I think that one's a useful one for people to pick up. So if you have some objects here on the screen, and what this happens more often than not, you're zoomed in way too far into your model, or to whether it's 3D or 2D, you can hit the home button on your keyboard, and then it zoom extends to the whatever is showing on the screen. Same if you're too far back, zoom extends and you're back there, or home. Number 2 is customization, and I have it as number 2 for a reason, because it's also really helpful. You can customize the things on your ribbon, keyboard, and marking menu. So if we go back here under Tools, Customize, you can customize your ribbon. In my opinion, it already has a lot of the things I'm looking for up there. And if it doesn't, you can definitely search for one of the commands, whether it's a sketch command that you can bring up to the ribbon. That's not already up there by default. Keyboard commands, like we were just talking about. The only one I would really change, just in my opinion, and you guys can change this for yourself, is the center point circle. I come from Fusion 360 personally, so I like having this as just the C button instead of holding Control Shift C as my key shortcut key there. I'm gonna go ahead and apply that. And then you also have things like the marking menu, which occurs when you right click while you're in any environment, and you're able to produce these commands here. Right now, this would be controlling the 2D sketch environment. So if I right click, we have access to these here.
Amazing.
For my convenience, I'm used to having the repeat last command commanded over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and search for that. And there it is right there. I'm gonna go ahead and have it replace my line tool. I get to the line tool with hitting L on my keyboard anyways. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace that over there. So now when I go into my sketches, I create the circle, hit escape. I'm gonna right click, and then there it is for me. Whatever I did last would appear there for me, so I can quickly and easily access that. And I just hit escape just naturally to exit out of that tool there.
Yep. Yeah, I think we all just hit escape now. I have a keyboard with macro keys on the left-hand side. And the one at the top is like where your escape key should be on your keyboard. So our colleague was helping me troubleshoot something, kept hitting my macro to open up Chrome.
Wow.
So he just kept opening up windows of Chrome instead of escaping. It was probably the most hilarious thing.
So he opened up a couple of
absolutely
instead.
Absolutely.
Be careful for those.
One more thing too,
yeah.
Brian.
Yeah.
I know you went over the like the zoom extents to be able to zoom that. Another really cool one that I use all the time is instead of hitting, I think it's that fork key. I don't use that. I just hit the center mouse button twice. The button, if your mouse scroll wheel is also a button, if you hit that twice consecutively, like super fast, double click it, it should zoom extends. So Brian, if you want to show that real quick too.
Sure. Yeah,
Just
anything you guys have to add?
zoom
like
out
this is
super far
perfect.
or zoom in
Yeah,
super far. Yeah, and you.
Oh, there you go. You hit the middle mouse button twice, and then it zoomed to the. I think I knew about that, but when I double click on my middle mouse button and I accidentally scroll a little bit, it kind of messes it up. So I like to hit the key on my keyboard, but that's just preference.
Absolutely,
That
yeah.
works just as
There's
well.
like 10 ways to do anything in Inventor. Literally, you can use shortcuts. You can use the marking menu. You can customize your shortcuts.
Oh,
We're
man.
just,
There's
we're
a
just
lot of
giving you all
customization.
the options, and then you guys can select which ones work for you. I know everyone works a little bit different.
Yep, just want to share the way we work, and hopefully it can help positively impact yours. Number 3, create a sketch and offset plane in one command. So typically when you go to create a new sketch that's offsetted from a particular face, like let's say that one, you would go to plane and offset from plane. You just specify the offset, and then you go to start a sketch on that plane. However, what you can do to skip that step is you can click on the 2D sketch. You can click on this face with your left mouse button and hold. And then when I'm still holding, you can drag this up to specify how far you want this plane to be, or this sketch to be offsetted from this face there. And once you're okay with that, now I just did 2-in-1 command with, because now I have a plane here that I'm already starting a 2D sketch on, offsetted from this face there. So just did the 2D sketch and the offset in that one command. Hopefully I'll save you guys time there.
Yep, I always hit the S button when I start sketches. Generally, I already have the work plane set up, but yeah, Brian's method of doing that is super cool. It's something I want to start using. I always generate the work plane and then hit S. But
right.
yeah, there's
another keyboard shortcut for
Yep.
you there. There's next, number 4, reusing existing geometry. You want to try to get away as recreating some of the existing geometry as much as possible. 2 of these here, if you guys have more examples, feel free to leave in the comments. Project geometry and copying existing sketches. So project, as many of you may know, and if you don't, then this will help you a lot. You can go to that project tool here and choose the face, and you can project it onto that sketch that we just created, and you can now use these projected geometry as reference. In addition, with the copy sketch, if we go to that sketch or a sketch here that was already used, and we want to use the features of that sketch, we can right click on that and hit copy. And now, since I already have the sketch open, I can just hit Control V or paste on my keyboard, and it'll paste that into my existing sketch with its dimensions as well. So if you want to use an existing sketch, but you want to kind of create your own new sketch, you can use that method there.
Yep, and this is there's just multiple ways of doing things too. Like with the copy sketch, it doesn't have a link to the original anymore, right? So if that original hole changes or the original sketch down there changes, like this won't update. But if you project the geometry, it's associative.
Yep.
Right. And so any changes to the geometry that it was sourced from will propagate up to the projected sketch. So just a thing that, a lot of people are confused, like my thing keeps changing.
Yeah,
Why?
depending on your scenario. If you want it to change, then perfect. You can do this with AutoCAD as well. You can copy an AutoCAD sketch, and if you have an Inventor sketch, you can Control V paste, and it'll bring that in for you there.
Keep note too, in some versions of AutoCAD, I don't know if it might be all of them, there's different copy. There's Control C and there's Control Shift C. One's copy clip, one's copy something else. One won't come here, one will. I don't remember exactly which one.
In this case,
depending on which copy command you use, sometimes it doesn't move. So just keep that in mind.
Right. All right, so let's go back to number 5, fully constrained sketch. This is probably one of the best tips we can give you, is you want to be able to, or you want to work with fully constrained sketch. At the end of your sketch, it should be fully defined. That means everything has constraints and dimensions in respect to the origin, and it won't move around unless you change a constraint or dimension. And this is the best practice when it comes to sketching. If you took a formal Inventor sketching class, then this is what you would learn in that kind of class. So for example, if we go to a drawing here. And we have these two models here. You can see that the circle is free to move around. It's not really defined at all. But if I start adding dimensions here, let me go ahead and show my, already showing my center point there. If I dimension the center point about the origin here, I tell it I want it 5 inches from the center. Now I partially defined this center point of the circle for moving, and it could only move up and down these 5 inches here. And let me get out of this. Oh, I'm still in my dimension sketch. There we go. Hit escape, hit escape. There we go. Move it up and down, but I can't move it left or right, as you can see, because it's partially defined there. Another dimension. Now, if I try to move it, it's not going to move left or right or up and down because it's the center is fully defined. It's from respect to the origin, but I can still change the diameter of the circle. That's not fully defined. And lastly, we just, of course, add a radius dimension. Now I can't move, let me just get out of the dimension tool. Now I can't move the circle diameter or radius. So now this is fully defined.
Yeah, the color of the circle will also change. You probably can't tell. Maybe you can. It's dark blue versus black.
Mm-hmm.
You can, I think I've changed the colors on mine a little bit, so they're a little bit more noticeable when you fully define something. It just helps determine, it's like, oh, that piece of geometry is not locked. Let me go ahead and do that. It's also good to dimension things with respect to the origin. Please, if you can, do it to something that remains static, right? Whether it's like origins or you know, something that is like static, and generally that is the origin. Because if you dimension this to say another, you know, another entity in your sketch, and that moves, then all of this stuff will move. So keep in mind, if you dimension things to the origin, most of the time you'll alleviate a bunch of headaches down the road if you need to edit something.
Yeah, and I wouldn't rely on color for the most part, because sometimes people have custom colors that they change their dimensions to. So we don't really specify, oh, when it's blue, dark blue, then it's fully defined. It's not
That's just the standard color. Yes. I think mine's green.
Yeah, and there's also an auto dimension tool that you can use to dimension your part if it's still lacking some dimensions. You know what, let's show that real quick. So if I didn't have this radius to dimension there, and I go up here to auto dimension, it will recognize what's not fully defined. Oh, it also recognizes these guys over here, and it auto dimensions it for you. I don't always go to this tool, because if I know how to dimension it, I would try to dimension it myself first. But if you want to get an idea of how to dimension it, or if it's something super simple like this and you just want to define, then fine. But if you wanted to be dimensioned in a particular way or constrained in a particular way, then do that first, or then it'll just create what it thinks, what Inventor thinks it wants to dimension it by, which sometimes works out like this, but sometimes you want it to have it be dimensioned a particular way.
Yeah, 2 other entities or whatever. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Number 6, displaying discrete degrees of freedom. This helps to show you whether it's fully defined or not. It would give you these red little lines and arrows pointing to, or on the ones that aren't fully defined. So for example, if I removed this dimension there, and I go down here to display my degrees of freedom, it shows me you can move this center point in the left or right direction because it's free to move in that direction.
Yeah, additionally too, in the bottom right-hand side next to the total occurrences, in your Inventor window, it'll tell you how many dimensions are needed. So to fully constrain or to fully define everything. So Brian, just delete another one. Doesn't matter which one it is. That'll update the degrees of freedom, right? That arrow just became like a full-blown like crosshair almost. And then it tells you there's 2 dimensions needed. So just a combination of all of that will be able to tell you.
Use both, yeah.
What I need.
Yeah. I think this is underused sometimes, and people forget about that. But when you're sketching and you're defining your sketch and you're almost done, just turn this on and see where else it's missing.
I just lock it. I'm bad.
Oh,
I always just like, oh, I'm
you can
select
fix it in
everything
place
and lock
as
it.
well.
Yeah.
But you want to probably dimension it for best practices there. Sketching in relax mode. So for example, if we had this line, and we're gonna go into constraints here in a second, that's forced to be vertical. However I move this line, it's gonna be vertical. I can change the length of it, I can move the position of it, but it's gonna be vertical. If we turned on relax mode, or F11, I can move this point, and it's highlighting the constraint there. It's telling me, hey, are you sure you want to move it like this? It's going to get rid of this constraint because you're moving it in that fashion. I'm like, yes, okay, I'm in relax mode. I want to do that. So be careful when you're in relax mode. It might get rid of your constraints, but if you want to have your sketches move in a particular way, and you do want to get rid of some of those constraints, then turn on relax mode. And you can definitely customize some of your relax mode settings in application options under constraint settings here. You can turn on which exact constraints that you want to be removed when relaxed. So some things like coincidence, right, in this case, would not be removed even if you are in relax mode. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that back off. 8, display dimension unit value. So some people ask me, hey, how do I show my units on the screen in my sketching environment? And with that, I show them this tool here. And in addition, this shows the parameters as well. But if we go to tools, document settings, units, and right here in the modeling this dimension display section, we can go ahead and turn on, for example, display as expression. And if we take a look here, we hit apply, it's going to give us the parameter, the unit, of course, or the value, and then the unit at the end, inches. So we're in inches, that it's that many inches with referencing that parameter.
Yep, this is the same thing for like significant units. Everyone always asks, oh, I want 4.574 instead of 4.57. This is where you change that.
Yeah, and that's where you could change the.
We get that question a lot.
Yeah. Number 9, apply automatic and manual constraints. So upon creation of a lot of these sketches, constraints are usually automatically applied. So for example, for the rectangle tool, if you don't look at it too seriously, you're just like, okay, great, I created a rectangle. But if you look closely here, you have a bunch of these constraints. Let me go ahead and go down here and turn on those constraints. A bunch of these constraints, or not turn on the visibility of these constraints, like the perpendicular one. This is the parallel one, makes that line parallel to that one, etc. These come in automatically with the rectangle tool. Same with the line tool. We just draw a straight line going like that. You can see a constraint's about to be made with that black line going horizontally across with that red line right below it. That's automatically created as well. And if you don't have a constraint and you want to create a constraint, let me go ahead and delete this parallel one, for example. You can go ahead and manually create it up here. And when fully dimensioning your sketches, like mentioned earlier, the best practices for that, you do want to use a lot of these constraints. These help to define and put your sketches in place so it doesn't move around, but it also gives it relationships to each other and about the origin as well. So it really helps to make your models and sketches more predictable and behave more intelligently as to the viewer as much as possible. So whoever else is taking a look at this sketch or 3D model later down the line can understand or can understand your models better. Utilizing parameters, number 10. So in this case, I want to just bring up that if you are creating a bunch of different dimensions in your sketch here. So for example, if I dimension, I just hit D on my keyboard as another shortcut. If you have things like that, where you have a couple of dimensions on your model, you can either automatically create dimensions on the fly. So I'm going to create a parameter on the fly. I'm going to call it height. The parameter height that I'm going to create right now equals 7. and the parameter width equals 3. And then I go over here to make that a 3D body. Instead of having to dig through my sketches here and then going in and changing that value, I can make it, and if I had more of those 7 inches or 3-inch values that I want to replicate across other parts of my sketch as well, I can just go over here to the parameters window instead and change that newly created parameter without having to go back into my sketch. And this would work for everything in 3D modeling. There's a whole another world of parameters that we can dive into. Just want to point this out that this exists out there. So when I hit update there, you can see that the parameters for that change, and this can just be very controllable here inside the parameters.
And all of this is like the backbone of automation, like too. So if you're ever thinking, it's like, I want to automate my processes at some point, right? Have your models generate on the fly, things like that, have them easily configurable. Parameters where you want to start. And it's good practice at the beginning when you're sketching these things, especially if you're going to use some of these parameters in other parts or in other assemblies, is that you name them properly. Because if you name them properly, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, I need the height of this part for my subassembly or for this other component, right? And I need to carry that over, and they need to be the same. It's either carry a parameter that says height of, you know, say this like block versus like D17. You're like, which one is it?
Yeah.
And you got to go into the sketch, find out which one it is. And you're like, oh, that extrusion's D17. Like, let me move that over. If you name them at the beginning, and you can name them when you dimension them. When you dimension it, right? Like what Brand said, do that. Also, if you are creating features like extrusions and fillets and stuff, you can also name those there. So please just do it.
Yeah. And this is another one that's useful for 2D and 3D recommendation is the patterns, as well as things like fillets, chamfers, and mirroring. You want to, for the most part, create your pattern, fillet, chamfer, and mirroring features as the 3D feature. So what I mean by that is, if I were to create this model here on the screen, I would create the circle sketch first, create the hole, extrude cut hole, and then I would do a pattern using the 3D pattern, not the 2D sketch pattern. Same for fillets. If I were to make this rectangular prism round at the corners here, I would want to create a rectangular prism first, extrude that, then use 3D fillet features to fillet that. It makes it easier for the model to compute for sometimes, but also it helps it to give the person who's using it later or yourself, it makes it easier for you to edit later down the line.
Absolutely, yeah. So like instead of, you want to open Inventor real quick? Draw a.
I have this pattern right here.
Boom,
so let me
send it.
So this one, for example, if we close out there, is the 3D rectangular pattern feature. And then if you want to edit just one of these hole cuts, like you want to change the size of the hole, the diameter hole, you can do that at this level. At this level there. If you want to change the depth of cut, for example, you could do it there. Or if you want to change the size of the hole there. So you have different layers in which you can do it, but it's a lot easier to understand something like this rather than having all of them jumbled into this sketch here. So just best practices to abide by. All right, we got 3 more here, or 4 more. Dragging arcs. So this is just a quick one. When you're sketching, let's go to, sneak peek into the other ones. When you're sketching, you can, if you're using the line tool, the next line you draw, you can click and hold, and then it'll start to create a tangential arc about from the previous line that you had. Draw a regular line, then click and hold, another arc, in case you work with a lot of splines or something along those lines. 13, create construction lines. This is the ability to, or this is useful when you want to create lines that aren't actually necessarily part of your model, but they can help reference other actual parts of your model. So this example right here, if you want to create a circle in the middle of this rectangular prism, you draw a line from a midpoint to midpoint, midpoint to midpoint, create the circle. But then we can go back here to these two lines here by holding Control, right click, and construction. Turn those to construction lines. We don't want that to actually be part of the model. We just want to have it there to reference the center of our circle. Trim, extend, drag. So you have the ability to quickly trim and extend objects without having to click on them individually one at a time, which is why I have this example here. So if I go to the trim tool, and instead of clicking at each one at a time like that, to make things easier, I'm just gonna click my left mouse button and hold, and draw this little line going through that, and release, and I just trimmed the entirety of the inner side of that sketch there. I can do the same, I can do this again, just going in and around like that. It's actually quite fun. So you go around and trim the inside of that as well. You do that for extend, I believe, as well.
Yep.
So number 15, wires. If you have a 3D sketch that goes across multiple planes like that, and you want to create a circle on a plane at the end of that sketch, you can use under plane, normal to curve at point. So it's exactly what it says. We're going to select the curve, and then we're going to select the point. So this plane is normal to this curve at that particular point. So now when we create our sketch, we create it on that plane. And then, of course, we can do something like a sweep. You know, if you need to create some sweeps or some wiring or something like that. On
Or you can use, you can use cable harness for that too. But yeah, like a lot of times people need to use that.
If you don't know cable harness, you just need to create a quick wire. There you go.
Or if you don't have Inventor Professional, I guess that works too.
And surprise, another one. The last one is just a bonus one that I wanted to add. Quick tangent lines to connecting circles. That's AutoCAD. If you have two circles and you want to create tangential lines between them, quick and easy way is using the line tool, clicking and holding. And then as I'm holding here, there's this tangent symbol that appears that wherever I let go of my line next will be tangential to, which I will release there. And I'll do the same here. I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to release here at the top. And there you have it. And then you could do something like a trim and clean that up there. That one I might need to go back and eyeball that one a little bit closer, but that one should have been tangential as well. So if you guys have more to add to what we showed here, or any comments to help everyone here and the viewers of anything we've done.
I have some solid ones, man.
Okay. There you go. And yeah, there's so much. This is just a part of what at a high level of what there is out there for sketching, just sketching alone, and how you can help improve your workflow even more so. So hopefully you guys took at least one thing from this, and if not, then you are great. You're a wizard. Yeah,
you're probably
no,
like some of the
wizard,
people who like told us which ones to put in here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about anything we just showed, or anything you want to add to help just better our community here, feel free to add to that.
Yeah, and we'll just make a couple announcements before we jump into questions. There's a lot, so I want to make sure we get to all of those. But Brian, you had something?
Yes. So we do have a KETIV, or not KETIV, Autodesk. There's Inventor on-demand webinars here. We'll go ahead and post that link in the chat room.
I got it.
Thank you, Nigel. So these are webinars similar to AVA here, but there are Inventor webinars that Autodesk hosts that you guys can attend as well. So you can
So
read more
keep-
about that in that link that Nigel just put in the chat
Yep,
room there.
absolutely. Keep an eye out on that. Cool. That's it for today. Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. We will talk to you all next week. Brian, I'll probably talk to you downstairs when we continue working. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us this webinar. If you have any questions in the future, go ahead and email those to us, and we'll see you again next week at 10 a.m. on Thursday. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.